And in the meantime, warm welcome. Um, so while we're waiting for the other people, the way I normally do this is to give you a few slides on Alphaletz and what the product does and a little bit of an overview on us, because you may be brand new to Alphaletz, maybe you've never heard of us before, or maybe you've heard of us but not quite sure. Um, our background and so on. So I always like to give people a little bit of an overview on that. And then I'll tell you a little bit about the product and then I'll show you it in action. So I'll do a demo as well. So um, while we are waiting, right, I can see a few more joining now. So, all right, well, let me kick off the webinar. Thanks again for joining. Now, because this is a webinar, it means I can't I can't hear everybody and I can't see you either. So it's me just really presenting. But at any point, you can put a message in the chat window, and I'll do my best to answer everybody's questions. Okay, I normally manage to get through most of them during the session, but if there are any, I can always contact you later, or you can always drop me an email after, and I'll put my email in the chat window. All right, so Alphaletz is just to give you a little bit of background on Alphaletz. I'm one of the founders of Alphaletz. We started about 5.5 years ago now. And it started off, in fact, before that, I was working on a prototype for about a year or two, whilst I was still doing my sort of normal day job, which was software. So I've always been involved in software for many years, all my working career. And for the last 20 odd years, I've been building a property portfolio alongside my day job, which a lot of you probably have had a similar journey, or maybe you're still building your portfolios as well. Um, and then it got to the point where I had been using spreadsheets like a lot of people on these calls, and other sort of homemade systems. And I just found it was too cumbersome and I had to find a better way. And I was actually waiting for somebody else to bring out a product on the market and nothing was coming around. So I thought, right, with a software background and property, let's build our own product. And that's how Alphalet's came about. So what the product will do is it will help you organize and access all your information. So keep everything in one place with access from anywhere, anywhere in the cloud. You can log on, so any internet browser. We have a mobile app as well, so you can download that. Give you really sort of easy visibility of what's going on with your property portfolio. And at any point, you can run a report and see that information as well. We're trying to automate as much as possible to save you a lot of time, with the sort of the day-to-day stuff. And at the end of the day, we give you that control. So you've got control of your business, which is really important, especially with all the new regulations and compliance that's going on at the moment. And at the end of the day, it'll save you a lot of time and money. Our users typically say they're saving about 75% of their time. So a really big time saver in the system. Now, if you're like a lot of people I speak to, you're already using a spreadsheet, or something similar. This is a real spreadsheet that I got from one of our customers. And it was actually about 3 times as wide as this, but I had to condense it to get onto one page. And you can see how these things just build up and build up. Obviously, I've changed the data. This isn't the real people's names or addresses, but the format is exactly the same. And you can see, every time there's a new tenant, the tenant details had to be updated in the spreadsheet and the email. Every time there was a new gas safety, that had to be updated over here. And it was just becoming more and more cumbersome to try and to manage. And then, like a lot of people, maybe you started with a spreadsheet, but then you needed to add other things like a database to keep track of your tenants and your suppliers, your plumbers, your electricians, your uh, property managers, and so on. So that would be the next bit. And then maybe you were looking at some sort of accounting software like Xero or QuickBooks, because you were trying to connect to your bank and run reports and this sort of stuff. Then you've got your task management to remind you to do things like, renew that gas safety certificate. And you can do that in Outlook or, an email reminder, for example. But we've designed something much more intuitive than that, which is more than just one simple reminder. It gives you the whole audit trail, and I'll show you that in a moment. And then you've got to store your data. You've got to store all those safety certificates, EPCs, and insurance renewals, and all that sort of stuff. And I know you can do that on your computer, but it does mean more file storage. And if it's on your personal computer, it might mean that if anybody else wants to get access, it's hard for them to find information. So before you know it, you've got four or five different systems all being used to try and manage your portfolio. And the idea of Alphalet's is that we bring it all into one place. As I say, give you access from anywhere, and including a mobile app, and make it very simple so anybody can use it. Okay, so that's the problem we're trying to solve, if you like. And maybe some of you have already tried some software, but it's you found it to be very clunky or dated or expensive as well. There's lots of sort of letting agent software which has been around for a long, long time, which is very, very expensive. And looks a little bit like this. We've taken a very different approach, which I'll show you in a moment. And the other thing is, I'm sure you already know the answer to this question, which is why you're on the webinar. But some of the reasons that you need to change are, first of all, that you've probably seen your costs rise significantly. And I'm not just talking about inflationary costs. I'm just talking about, in my years as a landlord, that you used to be able to charge the tenant for credit checks. There was a wear and tear allowance. If your flat was empty, you didn't pay council tax, for example. All that has changed. And so all these things are adding extra cost to our business. So we need to be on it and be very cost aware. And even worse than that, if you forget to do something like an EPC or a gas safety, the fines now can be astronomical. I mean, I'm hearing fines of 30,000, even 50,000 pounds I was hearing about for some new fine that's coming out. So you've got to be really careful about that. And that means that the tenant management side is really vital. Keeping good notes, making sure your documentation's up to date, and being reminded of anything that needs to be done. And of course, digital records will become a legal requirement. So as making tax digital comes along in the next couple of years, this will become much more of a requirement as well. And as I say, users will save a significant amount of time using our system, which I'll show you in a moment. Now, you might be asking who's using Alphalet's. So the answer is thousands of people. Everyone from some people with free accounts with just one or two properties, right through to here's some examples of three of our bigger customers. We've got Paula just signed up recently, probably 3, 6 months ago. She tried all sorts of different things. She was mostly spreadsheets, and she tried Zero as well. But she had spreadsheets coming out of her ears. You can actually read or watch her case study on YouTube. We've got a YouTube video on our Alphalet's YouTube site, and she's got about 70 properties, mostly HMOs, but some single lets as well. And she just basically talks about the challenge she had of trying to manage everything in spreadsheets. Teresa in the middle, she's got about 50 properties. She's more around terraced houses, and done really, really well with her properties, built a really nice portfolio over a decent stretch of time. And she had also tried all these different things. She tried Sage. What else she tried? Definitely spreadsheets. I think she tried to build something herself, and then found Alphalet's and loved it, and has become a really big advocate of ours. And again, we've got a case study on her. And then Joe on the right-hand side, same thing. He tried different landlord packages, just couldn't find anything that was suitable for him. He'd also tried building stuff himself, And then again, he found Alphaletz and has also become a great big fan and advocate of ours. And I describe him more of a sort of build to rent. So he will take like commercial buildings, like it could be like an old warehouse, and convert it into blocks of flats. And he owns the whole block. So, he's really, really successful, real entrepreneur. He's also doing stuff with electric cars and all sorts of stuff now. But brilliant, brilliant advocate of ours. And again, loved Alphalet's and has been a long time customer. So I'll show you the system in a moment. Some of you may have already logged on and created a free account. So you've got a general feel, but I'll show you around the product in a moment. And we've really, as you can see from the design, we spent a long time, not only just on the functionality of the product, which is obviously key, but also the design of it. The design that you'll see, which I'll show you in a moment, it took us about 2 years to really develop that and get it into a format that users really love. And we're very, very pleased with our design. It's one thing that people really rave about. And also we have that consistent design in the mobile app as well, which you can download for free on the Apple Store and the Google Play Store. And you can get started with 3 properties completely free. And if you want to upgrade to a paid plan, which I'll show you in a moment as well, you get lots of extra features, and they start from just £11 a month for up to 10 properties. All our plans can be upgraded. In fact, I think, yeah, I've got a slide here. We have 4 types of plan. We have the free version here. We have the Pro, which gives you up to 10 units. You can upgrade the Pro you can put 100 units on the Pro if you want, but we package them up because we find that most of our users, well, all of our users fall into one of these 4 categories. Either they've just got 1 or 2 properties, they've got sort of 10 or 15. So, you could start off with 10 and add a few units to that, or they're sort of 25 plus, and we have a Pro Plus plan with 25. And then we have the enterprise plan, which really it really kicks in at about 100 properties. So we have quite a few of those now. A lot of big, well, like Joe, I was showing you on the other page, and also some small letting agents now are starting to use Alphaletz, which wasn't originally our target market, but we found more and more agents are coming to us now because, again, they just like the design and simplicity so much. And you can find all the information on our website at alphaletz.com. And also, you can always drop us a line at info@alphaletz.com if you need any extra help. We do have a chat bot on the front of our website, which, in fact, let me just show you that. Just minimize that. So here's our website. And we have a chat down here where you can click on here. That's quite automated, so there isn't always a real person at the end of that. It just depends what time of day you're calling and if somebody can get on it or not. But you should get most of the answers from the chat. We also have a really good YouTube channel, which is here. This is our YouTube channel. Loads of videos on here. Try and give you lots of stuff to sort of help you get started yourself. And some people like to watch stuff rather than read documents. I certainly do anyway. So there are lots of videos on there, and we can always do a Zoom call like this if you need any specific help as well. All right, so here's our website. If you haven't yet started an account, you can click on this button here, start for free. And if you have started an account, then you'll know that next time you get when you get to log on, you just click on the log on button here. And that will take you to the dashboard that looks like this. Okay, so down the left-hand side, you can see all the features of the product. So one thing we've worked really hard on is, I mentioned design, but also simplicity. We try to keep it very, very simple from a user perspective. But at the back end, it's very powerful. It's got lots of integrations. It's a very clever system. But from a user experience, we work hard on keeping that simple. So it's it's a delightful experience when you're using the system. And down the left-hand side, you can see all the features of the product. So there's a dashboard screen, which is here. You can see a list of properties. You can track your mortgages, your purchase information. So as you build up your portfolios, or maybe if you've already built them, you can keep track of what you paid for your properties. You can store all your documents there as well, like your title deeds and so on. We have a full task management system. I'll show you that in a moment. We have a really good document management system here as well. You can keep track of all your tenants, your suppliers, and suppliers, I mean, that would be plumbers, electricians, banks, building societies, mortgage lenders, brokers. I've got literally hundreds and hundreds of suppliers now. I've got so many that I was losing track. Now I've got everything in here, and also I put a lot of my personal stuff in here as well because it's just a great way of storing information. If you have properties in your own name or maybe in a limited company, you can set up different types of ownership. Or maybe if you manage properties for other people, then you can manage their properties as well. We have fully integrated banking in here as well through open banking, which I'll show you as well. Full reporting, and then we have some other things in here, like some edit. You can edit stuff, and we have a marketplace where we offer things like insurance and mortgages and that sort of stuff. And that's because we constantly get asked, who do you recommend for mortgages or insurance? So we built a marketplace and we just put everything in there. And this is everything in our marketplace is stuff that we've used ourselves. So it's not just names and addresses from Yellow Pages. These are real companies that we really like and recommend. Okay, so let's start with the dashboard. And as I say, please feel free to stick in any. I think the chat. Let me just check. Ba, 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 ba. Yeah, yeah, that's all right. I just checking that I'd set the chat up correctly. I have. So you can put a message in the chat any time, and I'll respond to that. There was one occasion where I hadn't enabled it, so people weren't able to put their chat messages in, and I thought it was being very quiet, and then I realized it was I hadn't set it up right. So you can put your messages in there, and I'd be very happy to answer as many questions as I can. Okay, so here's our dashboard. So let's assume this is your account. You've logged in, and you can see here. In fact, because we're just in April, this is obviously a demo account. If I switch back to March, you'll notice here we've got our rents and expenses. So as well as just showing you, how much you've received and how much is due, we give you this nice little status bar. So it's just a visually easy way to see where you are with your rent. So, for example, if I wanted to see what's due, I can click on here, and this will show me that in March. Now, obviously, we're in April now, but this is just a demo account to give you an idea. So in March, you can see that there were still 4 payments that were due and haven't come in. And you can either just mark them as paid here in a sort of manual way. So I can just say, yeah, they've come in, or I can automate it through the bank, which I'll show you in a few moments. Okay. One question's come in. Can you show how to backdate rent payments? Yeah, sure, James. Just bear with me one moment. And then here you've got your expenses exactly the same way. I can see here I've paid £642, so I can click on here and I can see the expenses that have been paid here. Okay. Now, also the other thing you'll see is right at the top, we've got 2 filter buttons. So if I just wanted to see my dashboard for one property, I can click on one like this, and I can see all the information for City Walk. I can see it's currently vacant. I can see my income and expenses for the property. I can see obviously we've got no rent because it's empty, but I can also see I've got a couple of tasks to do here. One is a gas safety and one is an EPC. And again, I love this personally because especially when it comes to things like cash flow, as your portfolio builds, or if you've already got a big portfolio, sometimes it's hard to know if each property is performing well. And I've had this myself where it's not until I get right to the end of the year when I was using spreadsheets and then I do my tax return, and then suddenly it was like, wow, I've actually made a loss on that property. And then I start getting involved. Then I look at the detail, then I'm trawling through all my receipts. But that's a year later. What you really want is you want to know it on as you go. So, at any point, as I say, if I was to click on City Walk, I can see, okay, right, well, my expenses are outstripping my income. If you hold your mouse over here, you can see it month by month. I can then flick through the months to see specifically what it might be, or I can run a report off and if I really wanted to delve into the detail, I can do that as well. And if you're managing properties for other people, or maybe, as I mentioned before, you might have some in your own name and some in a limited company, then you can say, right, well, show me all the properties just in my own name. Okay, maybe your name's Alex Ferguson. So you can click on that, and I can see here are all the properties. And again, it'll work out the cash flow and expenses. And what we do here in these three windows down the bottom, and this one in particular here for the cash flow, this is a 6-month window. If I wanted to look at a different date, I can scroll through here. I can set my date range, and then you'll notice that it will dynamically update all that income and expenses on the dates that I've asked for. So it's very quick and easy to get at data without having to run reports and go through line by line. If I just wanted a quick look, I can do that very easily. And the other reason we've created this in this look and feel is that creating these three boxes down the bottom makes it very nice when it comes to the mobile app. Because obviously when you're using a mobile phone, you've got a little device this big, and we wanted to create the same look and feel on the mobile as on the desktop. So these boxes fit very nicely onto a mobile screen, which you'll see when you download the mobile app. So that's how I could see my portfolio either by an individual property or by an owner. And then right in the middle of the screen, we have the integrated task management system. And again, the reason we put that right in the middle of the screen is because it's probably one of the most important things that we need to know as property investors is, first of all, how are our rents looking and how are our expenses tracking? But then where do we stand with our compliance? Is there anything needs doing? What do we need to be working on right now? And say, oh yeah, we've got a leaky shower at this property here. We've got a gas safety that's coming up on the 19th of April. This one was due on the 25th of March, which is why it's flagged up in this purple color, because it's a sort of we use this purpley red as a sort of warning. So this is a warning that, we've gone overdue now and that needs urgent attention. If that's already in, let's say it's a task which is already in progress, you can always snooze the task. So you can just snooze it here and that will disappear till tomorrow when you log in again. So, if you've got things you already know you're working on, it's like, oh, I just want them out of the way because that's being done. Or when you complete the task, like let's complete this one, I can just click on the little circle here and that task is now completed. You can see when I complete it, it grays it out like this, and that will stay on the dashboard for 24 hours. And then tomorrow when I log in, it'll be gone. And it stays on there in case, I don't know, let's say somebody else logs in and you don't want them working on the same task that you've already completed. So they would be able to see that the task has been done and it's been done today, which is why it's still on the dashboard. And then obviously tomorrow it'll be removed. All the tasks here are just what's upcoming. So I can see I've got, if I click on this one, for instance, this EPC here for City Walk, it's telling me quite a few things. So first of all, the due date for that is the 30th of April. And I've asked the system to remind me 30 days before the due date. So what would that be? Say the 1st of April. This task will appear on my dashboard, okay? Because it's 30 days before the 30th of April. And also, if I have any attachments in here, and this is what I was talking about how our system is different from just a sort of general reminder, because you can attach all sorts of attachments in here. So let's say it was a maintenance thing where one of your tenants has called up and they've got a leaky shower or a broken tap or something like that. You can actually capture all the pictures in the task detail. You can put in quotes. Maybe you've had a quote from a plumber. Maybe you had two quotes. So you can put both quotes in here. You put all your notes and pictures and everything into the task. And then what you can do is you can start to add notes. If I click on edit, you can see here. So I've got electrician booked for next Wednesday. Then they were rebooked for Tuesday. Sorry. Then they were rebooked for Wednesday. And as you make notes and action the task, you can put all your notes and comments in one place. So within this task, you've got the whole audit history. You've got the date it was due, the notes, your documents. It's specific to that property. So what you've got here is every Monday morning, all the upcoming tasks here will get mailed to you, emailed to you automatically. So even if you're not in Alphaletz, you'll still get an email to say, you've got 3 tasks here, and they're all coming up for need action now, and the system will constantly and continually remind you. And then all the tasks, as you start to work your way through the tasks, they will move into your general task folder. So every single task that's ever been done in the system will be in here. So you've got all that audit history. And as you do them, you'll see we put a sort of a line through it. It's a really nice way. It's a bit like with a notepad when you put a line through because you finished it, which can be quite satisfying, really. And you can even look at it. Obviously you can search for everything. If I wanted to search for like gas safety, I can do that, and I can look at it as in a calendar view as well. So not just in a long list, but as I scroll through the months, I can see tasks that have been done. I can see tasks that are upcoming. And it's just very, very simple to keep track of where you are. So as I say, we put them in the dashboard to remind you of the urgent stuff. You put all the tasks here. And then when you go into the property page, all the tasks are also linked to the property. So, if I wanted to look at one property in particular, I can go into the tasks and I can see everything to help me track it very easily. Okay, please keep the questions coming if there's anything else as well. I'll come back to you, James, in a moment. And then down here at the bottom, now I mentioned this was your rents that have been received and due. And due for April, obviously we're only just in April, so that doesn't mean that any of these are overdue. That just means that they're due to be paid this month. If a rent payment goes overdue, then we also track that again right here on the front page. So I can see I've got 4 tenants with a total of £9,000 of arrears. Hopefully none of you have arrears that look anything like this. This is just a demo account to give you an idea of how it works. And then down here, again, I can see individually. So let's have a look at John Smith here. He owes £600. I can go into the tenant history. It's searching through all the payments. It's found, here we go. So he was in an HMO. He was in room 3. The first part of his tenancy, it looks like here, first part of his tenancy was completed and all paid for. And then he renewed, and he's renewed it for 10 years, according to this. But he owes £600. So I can then click in here, and this will take me to the schedule of all the rents, which we call the rent scheduler. And as I flick through here, there it is. There's the payment that's overdue. And again, I can see it was due on the 1st of April, and it's obviously about a week late now. Okay, so finding your way around the system and giving you that visibility is really incredibly easy. And then you've got your occupancy rates here. So you can see I've got a vacant property, I've got three tenanted. And if you've got a small portfolio, this may not be as relevant, but once you get to big portfolios, this is a really nice feature. We did have one customer who they manage about 150 properties as they got a really big portfolio. And there's three people that manage these properties. And there was one property that was vacant, and it had been vacant for about 6 months. And the only reason was because everybody else thought that they were managing that property. So nobody realized it sort of fell through the cracks. So this property was just sitting there. And I know it sounds crazy, but when you've got a portfolio that big and you're busy with, dealing with, renewals and requests and tenants, EPCs and then gas safety and all this sort of stuff. That's what can happen. And so this system, they love that feature on the front page, and we do have letting agents that use it as well. All right, so that's a little bit about the dashboard. Hopefully that gives you a feel for the way we've designed it and the thought process that went into it. And we are landlords ourselves, so we base a lot of the user experience on what we would require, as real users, not just software developers, but as a real landlord, and how we would want to use the system for our own business. And then when you log into your account as well the first time, you'll see a nice onboarding screen. So it takes you step by step on how to get started. We leave the onboarding screen in here. We did think about removing that once you've actually added your property. But the reality is that some people, maybe you've got 10 properties, you put all the 10 properties in, and then 2 years later you add another property, and you're trying to remember, how did I actually, what was the process to so we leave the onboarding there so that you can see step one, add your property, add your tenant, add your letting agent, and so on. If you don't use a letting agent, you can skip that. And if you don't use open banking, you can skip that. But otherwise, just follow those 5 steps. All right. So and then we've got the list of properties, mortgage information, purchase information, documents, and so on. But I'm just going to skip down to the open banking because this is one of the core parts of the system that people really love. And in here, we've got the ability to link to it's about 12,000 different banks now globally, not just the UK either. And that includes credit cards, PayPal, American Express. Pretty much every financial institution now supports open banking. And if they do, then generally speaking, we can connect to them. And when you're ready to, if you haven't used open banking before, you'll see this obviously is already connected. But if you haven't yet connected your account, you'll see a little button and it will say connect your bank account. And if I click on it, it'll look something like this. And then it says Alphaletz uses Plaid or Plaid, I think they pronounce it Plaid. And Plaid are the integrator that we use to connect to all the global banks. That's how open banking works. So they connect to thousands and thousands of banks, and then we integrate with them, and then we can pull all that data in. So you would just continue through this, follow the wizards, look for your bank. There's about 10 or 11 on the front page. If you can't see your bank, then just type it in. So let's if I put in PayPal, for example, there you go, PayPal. You can see it's in here. We've got Deutsche Bank in here. It's pretty hard not to find your bank, okay, because there are so many that are supported. There are a few sometimes. I had the other day, somebody was asking me about Virgin. So Virgin are in here, but for some reason they don't seem to support I'm not a Virgin customer, so I'm not sure. This is how it would work by the way as well. So it'll take you through to the web page and and then you just put in your just as if you were logging on normally. Whoops, I just lost the page. Hang on. Um, Sorry, yeah. So just log on as if you're logging on. I won't go through it now in the demo, but basically it's just like logging on as if you're logging onto your online banking, and then it will say, "Yep, do you want to connect?" You say yes, and then all your transactions will automatically be pulled into Alphalet's, and we can go back 2 years in time. Okay, so all the transactions, income, expenses, credit cards, whatever it is, 2 years of that data can be pulled in. Um, the only reason it's restricted to 2 years is because that's the legal limit. Otherwise, we'd pull in as much data as you wanted, but that seems to be the limit. And once you pull in the data, you can then start to reconcile your transactions. Okay, so here I can see I've got all these transactions here. And for example, if I wanted to reconcile this transaction here, I've got some rent. I could click on reconcile and I could say, yeah, this rent is for Q Road and it's for this payment here, whatever it might be. And then I hit the save button. And once I've saved it, then those transactions would then be reconciled. So for example, here I can see I've reconciled this rent here for Q Road. And that now, everything that's been categorized will show on my reports, on my dashboard, and so on. Until it's reconciled, it goes into the review button and it's basically held there until you tell the system what you want to do with it. You can set up automatic things like I've done here. So I set up a bank rule, which has said that every time a payment comes in for them, then I've set up a bank rule which I can then just accept like that, and then that transaction, if I go in here, there it is, has been reconciled against City Walk as a service charge. I've categorized it as an allowable property expense, and I can see that the payee is the service charge company there. So it's incredibly quick and easy as you glance through these, say, yeah, that's good, that's good, that's good, and so on. Okay. Um, Now I'll show you how easy it is as well to set up a property. So let's say, now some of you might have already done this, but let me just show you how you can, once you've linked your bank account, how powerful this is. So I've got a City Walk here. I can see it's a vacant property. Okay. In this list of information, we don't just give you a list of properties, we actually try and give you useful information. So I can see this is overdue, this is a pending, which means the tenant is signed up, but he's not moving until the 15th of May. Here we've got a multi-unit, so I can see I've got 3 of 6. I can click on this little down arrow and I can see who the 6 properties are. I can see I've got a couple of vacant ones and so on. But let's go into City Walk because this is a vacant property. So I'll go into City Walk here and it's got no active tenancy at the moment. It's a vacant property. If I go into the rent scheduler, I can see there's nothing in here. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll add a tenancy on. And let's say you've set up an account today and a tenant moved in a year ago, so you want to bring in all that information up to date. So I click on Add Tenancy, and this is where you would add in your tenant. So let's pick this guy here. If the tenant isn't in here, you can add a new tenant here, but let's assume you've already added the tenant in. And let's say they moved in a year ago. So let's go to the end of March. And they've moved in for an initial 18 months. They're paying £745 a month. And that is all I need to do. Okay, I'm putting the name, the start date, the rent amount. These are all optional. If you want to add in the details of your security deposit, if a letting agent manages it for you. You can subtract their fee from the monthly rent. You can set up utilities. You can set up automated emails as well to send the tenant a reminder that the rent is due. But for the moment, I'm just going to keep it really simple. And you can also add a document. So if you wanted to attach the AST, you could do that here in this pop out. All right, so I'm going to hit Save Tenancy. Now, what the system has done is it's built that schedule of rents. So remember, I started it in March 24, and I've said that was the start date, and I've said it's 18 months, so that's the end date down there at the bottom. And you can see with, just a couple of clicks, it's built out the whole schedule. So I don't have to type it in every month, like March, £745 and April, whatever. It's done it all for me in the background. And I've now got three choices of what I can do with this information. If you're doing a historical, this sort of comes into your point, James, about if you wanted to add a historical tenancy in, and the tenants moved, they moved in 5 years ago, they moved out 3 years ago, and you just want to mark it all as paid. Remember, we can only pull in bank transactions for 2 years. Okay, so oh, sorry. Yeah. So before 2 years, you'd have to tell the system that the rents are being paid or not being paid. And you would do that by just saying, yeah, I want to mark all these payments as paid. Or I can skip that and I can leave them all unpaid. And you can see they're showing as unpaid at the moment because I haven't told the system what I want to do with it yet. And that's why they're all showing as this purple, because they're showing as outstanding rents. Or my third option is, now that I've connected the bank to the system, I can click on Match from Bank and I can ask the system to go and look for all those rent payments across the connected bank accounts. And you can see that, within a split second, it's found 12 matching rent payments. It says, if any payments are not matched, please ensure that the amounts and dates are correct. You can always delete and re-enter this at any point. So if you've made a mistake and you've reconciled the wrong tenant or whatever, you can always undo it, and those payments will go back into the review section. If I just accept it now as it is, it will have automatically categorized all those rent payments. And if you want to watch, there's a video here which will give you more information on how to set this up. And if you want to, if you're happy with that and you want to then go and set a bank rule up, actually, I will do it. I'll do that. I'll show you that. But just before I do that, in the background, it'll come back to this page in a moment. But in the background, you can see it's found and matched all these rent payments, with the exception of one here, which we'll come back to in a moment. So I'm going to say, yeah, I'm all good with that. Now I'm going to create a bank rule. It takes me to the smart banking, and it takes me to the bank. Oh, hang on a second. I think I just, oh yeah, here we go. And it takes me to within the smart banking, it takes me to the bank rule tab here. And it's created all the criteria that I need to create the bank rule, with the exception of it's asking me what I want the system to look for when it sets up the bank rule for the future. So when rent comes in, for example, the reference from the bank, it might be the tenant name, it might be the property address, it might be a reference number or something like that. In this case, I know that the tenant is called Merrill. So that's his last name. So I'm just that's all I need. It says, because I'm saying that the tenant contains Merrill, so that's his name. The amount equals that is the rent that I'm expecting every month, and it will now automatically assign this to City Walk. And all I have to do now is save that. Okay. Once I've saved it, it takes me back to the rent scheduler page, and you can see it's put all these rents into the system, and it's matched it to the bank, which is why I see a little bank symbol there. If for any reason it wasn't matched from the bank, or I didn't want to match it, maybe you haven't connected your bank, then I can click on here as mark as paid. And you can see that that rent has been reconciled, but it hasn't been reconciled from the bank. That's just me telling the system that the payment has come in. And there are there's some reasons why you might do that. One is that you may not your bank, you may not want to connect to your bank, or you can't find your bank, or it's an older payment, more than 2 years. Or maybe it's a cash payment. Maybe it's an expense like a cleaning and you've paid that in cash. And you can't reconcile it from the bank because you just paid it in, pound notes. So you can just mark that as paid. Now, James's question was how to backdate rent payments. So the way to do that is if I go into tenancy history here, as you start to add in all the different tenancies, they'll start to show in the tenant history. I like this a lot because once you've got, 4 or 5 over the years that have been set up, you can see how much rent you were paying, how long the tenants stayed in the property, which gives you a good gauge on, is tenants stay a long time. I like that for my own properties because it's less hassle. If I get a lot of turnover, then I start thinking, okay, what's wrong with the place? Does it need a refurb? Am I charging too much rent? Have the market dynamics changed? Maybe this appealed to students, but now the universities stopped, shut down, or they've stopped doing certain courses, and whatever it might be. So having that history here tells you a lot about sort of intelligence of the property. Now, James was asking about how to set up a historical, how to backdate rent payments. So if you're doing that, what I'd recommend is to put in the oldest rent first. So if you had a tenant that moved in 5 years ago, put that tenant in first. As now, if the tenant has stayed, but the rent has increased, you can do a rent review. So for example, here, I can see I've put £745 in till August, but let's just say actually the rent's gone up. So I want to change the rent from, now they're grayed out because they've already been paid and reconciled. So I can't go back and change the rent back in January because I've already paid that. I could actually do it if I unmarked January's payment, then I can change it then. But let's just assume that the rent is going to change in June. Click on June, put in the new amount, whatever it might be, and then hit save. Okay, so now what we've seen is this tenancy is still active. It goes through till May. And then in the drop down at the top here, I can see that the new rent is going to kick in June at 775. Okay, and then if I go into tenant history, I can now see that they were paying 775 between those dates. And then from the 28th of March, or whenever it was, I set it. Sorry, yeah, it was, whatever date I set it anyway, it's gone up to, sorry, here it is. It's gone up to 775. Sorry, got those the wrong way around. Okay, and it also tells you how many days they were in the property. As I mentioned before, they've got no arrears, so they're all paid up. And this is still the active tenant. They've just renewed it. Okay, you can convert this to a rollover tenancy as well. If if the tenant just it's not a fixed term anymore, they've rolled it over, you can do that as well. You can even renew it as well if you want to. Let's say it's a fixed term and they want to renew it for another 12 months. Just follow the prompts. It's really simple to do it. But James, hopefully that's answered your question. So just start with the oldest first, and then bring it up to the latest, and then that will all make sense. Okay. Now, a few other things I wanted to show you. One is and as I say, cheers, James. And please let me know any other questions, anybody, just stick them in the chat. We've then got smart reports here on the left-hand side as well. And if I wanted to run a report, let's say it was for, well, let's say I wanted to look at the last financial year. So this would be, let me just check here, export. Yeah. Okay. So I can export this in a number of different ways. I know people love spreadsheets, other people hate spreadsheets. I know there's a whole mixed bag, but they are one of the best ways to look at data. So we do have, but the beauty is, of course, that rather than you having to update the spreadsheet and keep filtering out rows and deleting this and re-putting columns, you don't have to worry about any of that now. Just put your data in the system and then export it in the way you want to see that data. So let's say I want to have a look at a complete breakdown. I click on export. It's built me my report. I've got two screens going here, so let me just move the screen over so you can see it. You can see how quickly the report was generated. And what I've got here, your accountant will love you for this because it's all very simply laid out. And for example, down the left-hand side, you can see each property is itemized. You can see the income for each property. You can see the expenses for each property, and you can see your net profit for each property. All categorized line by line, and you can see the categories, you can see the description. So again, if you pass this to your accountant and they say, what was that? What was that? That other allowable property expense. You've not actually said what it is in the description. If you write in boiler finance cover or whatever it might be, then that will probably save you a phone call as well, right? So it lists it all out here. It totals it all up. So you see all your total of your property expenses, all your income, all your profit. If you have non-property related expenses like, I don't know, let's say you've been to a property exhibition and you want to claim your train fare and your travel expenses, whatever it might be. So it's not related to one specific property, it's related to the whole portfolio, then that would be a non-property expense here. Okay, and that's it. So I've gone from being one of these people who on the 31st of January at about 10 o'clock at night would be finalizing my tax return. I've gone from that and even missing it sometimes by literally, a few hours and having to pay the fine for it. I've gone from that to now getting in my tax returns really early. I'm normally done by October, November time. In fact, I'll probably do my next one. I might even do it this month, get it out of the way so it's done, even though it's not due till January, because it's just so easy. It's one click. I export all the data and give it to my accountant and I'm done. So I got another question. So one can add current tenancy and then add historical tenancies afterwards. Yeah, yeah, you can do it that way. But right, so the question here is, let me just go back to a property. Let's go back to City Walk. So the question is, and actually both these questions are related, about adding in historical tenancy data. So the second question I've got here is, so you can add a current tenancy, then add historical tenancies afterwards. You can do it that way, but it's a little bit more tricky because when you've put in the current tenant, that becomes your active tenant. And we can only have one active tenant in a property at a time. You can't have two active tenancies running in a property. So if you've set up a current tenancy and that is active, then you can't add a historical tenant unless you end this tenancy first. Okay, if you end this tenancy, then you can go and you'd put your oldest one in first. They effectively become the active tenant until you close that or end that tenancy. Then you add the next one in, they become the active tenant, then you end that, and so on until you come up to date. So it's a lot easier if you can put the older one in first. If you have started it, don't worry though, there's always a solution to all this stuff. So for example, let's say let's say, yeah, what you can do is you could end, so we can see that this tenancy doesn't start till June and it runs to November. So you could actually end it, for example, and you could say, yeah, I'm going to end it when it should end in December, and I just mark it complete. Now we know it's not actually ended because we're not even in June yet. Okay, so this is one way you could do it. I would just if this I'd only do it this way if you've already put a load of data in. But it's also really simple to delete tenancies and put them back in again. So I'd be tempted just to do that and then start from the oldest one. But this is another way you could do it. So if I end that tenancy, then I can go and add a new tenancy and I can go back in time. Okay, so let's say Carol Smith moved in. You'll see it's grayed out here as well because that's where we've already have a tenancy in place. But if I go back in time, I can see that's not grayed out. Um, and I could put whatever, £700 rent, save that. And because it's an old one, I'm just going to say, yeah, all those rents were marked as paid. So I'm just going to click mark as paid. We've reconciled 12 payments. And now if I go into tenant history, there's Carol Smith. So I've put her in as a historical tenant. So that's one way to do it. I would, it's probably harder to do it that way, but if you need any help, just let me know and I'll get on a Zoom call and help you through that. But it's pretty straightforward. Dashboard only shows three bank accounts. How to add more than three accounts? Right. So the bank accounts depends on what plan you have. So let me just go back to here. So with our Pro account, you get three bank accounts as part of the Pro package. In the Pro Plus, you get five bank accounts, and in the Enterprise, you get unlimited bank accounts. Now, the other thing we do is once you start adding more properties, we'll activate more bank accounts. We don't actually advertise this because for most people, that is enough bank accounts. But I do appreciate, some people have lots and lots of different accounts. But one other thing about the bank accounts is if I go onto the bank accounts, um, I've got a Barclays bank account here set up. And I've got two accounts within Barclays. I've got a current account and a savings account. Now that only counts as one bank. Okay, this is the beauty of this. So as long as you can have five different accounts within Barclays, and we still only count that as one account. So three bank accounts is a lot for most people. As I say, I know there's always exceptions. So if you get to a point where if you go into my account and you go to subscription, now this showing an error message here because this is a demo account, I haven't got it linked to this payment gateway because I use this to, I can see I've got 200 units set up here. But if you wanted to add, let's say you've got 10 units and you wanted to add another three, for every three accounts, you'll get another bank account activate, which will automatically activate. As I say, we don't advertise that because we don't always need it. But if you've got 10 units and you add another three units, you'll get another bank account as part of that. But as I say, remember also that, that counts as one bank. You will see, however, with Barclays, you might have a Barclays business account and a Barclays personal account. That would actually count as two banks, even though it's still Barclays because one's business and one's personal. But within your personal account, if you had five different types of savings account, that still only counts as one. Hi, Colin. Yeah, I'm afraid it did. It did start an hour ago. It started at 12, I'm afraid. But I have got a recording of it, so I can send that through. I'll be happy to do that if you'd like that. No problem. Um, so Sorry about that, Colin. I'm not quite sure. Oh, it's in your calendar for third. Huh, okay. Not sure why. But anyway, don't worry, I can send you the recording and I'd be very happy to answer any calls. Yeah, it could have been. Maybe it's the hour change or something like that. But anyway, um, I just want to make sure I've got everyone's questions as well. Um, Hopefully I've answered those questions okay. I know the historical tenancy thing. What a lot of people do is they get really excited, they put the tenancy and think, oh, this is brilliant. Now I want to go back. I have so many people that come on and say, I want to get started with Alphaletz and I'm going to start everything from April for the new tax year. And then they get everything uploaded really easily and quickly, and they love it. And they say, "This is so good. I want to go back and put all last year's data in." So they then go back and put last year's in as well, which of course you can do. But if you do it that way, you might have to just play around with the tenancies a little bit. And as I say, don't forget. Let me just show you how easy this is. So here I am with City Walk. I go in here. I've decided actually that I've put the wrong one in. I'm just going to start again. So I'm just going to delete it. Okay. And now I've got that one. Remember I started that's an old one. Let's say that's okay. And then I've got this one here so I can just delete that as well. Okay. It's that simple to add and delete tenancies. And then so I'm now in 2021. And I want to, so I'm gonna end that tenancy. Just make sure you click on the end tenancy button, okay, to formally end that one. So yeah, that's all done. Okay, and now I can add a new tenancy. So I'll show you again how quick and easy it is to add in. So let's go back to that Merrill guy here. Um, and let's say he moved in a year ago. And let's say he moved in for 18 months. And the rent on this one is £745. Save the tenancy, find the transactions from the bank. I'm not going to create a rule for this one, just to show you, just to quickly pull it in. And there it is. I've pulled in the data. So as long as you've connected your bank, then pulling in that data is really quick. If you aren't bothered about connecting to your bank, or it's a 4-year-old tenancy, then remember you can just click as mark as paid, and it will manually mark these as if I'd done that 12 times, but instead of having to click the button, the system will do it for you. Okay. So hopefully it gives you an idea of how flexible the system is. Oh, I did want to show you one other thing as well, which is documents. Documents, big part of being a landlord now with all the different regulations and so on. So we've sent you can have documents. If I go into a property, um, along the top here, you've got these tabs here. You've got all your documents here. You've got all your notes. You've got your reminders about this. Remember I was showing you about the tasks. So as well as having the tasks in here, these are all the tasks which are specific to this property, City Walk. Okay, if I just want to look at all my tasks, I can look in here. I've got my documents where if I want to, I can download the document. Or if I just want to have a quick look, I can click on this little preview button here, and it will open up the gas safety, whatever the document is I'm looking for. Okay. Now that's by going into the property. But what we did, a few people were asking about, well, I'd like to see all my gas safeties in one place. So we put this tab on the side here. And this shows you all the documents across all the properties, but in one central tab. So if I was looking, for example, for gas safety, I can click in there, I can hit find, and then you can see it's found all the gas safeties across my whole portfolio. Now, obviously, this is a demo account, so I can see I've got 3 which are well overdue and I've got two coming up. And again, I can click on here and I can see, maybe the last year's gas safety and for information. So I can see, maybe who I used to do the gas safety and when it was done and, any other information like that. So again, really, really powerful, really simple to use. Obviously, for the documents here, you must have a document attached because it is a document management system. If you put in gas safety but don't attach the document, then it's not going to show up in here because, as I say, this is a document management system. Okay, just keeping an eye on the questions. All right, everyone. So hopefully that's given you a really good overview. There's way too much to show you in an hour because it's such a powerful system and there's so much that it can do. But hopefully that's given you a really good flavor for an incredibly low price. As I say, it is just £11. There's two options here as well on how you can buy it. Let me just show you this as well, because we do get questions on this. Everything's on the website. If I go to the pricing at the top of the page, I can see I can buy it either month to month. So if I wanted to start with the pro account here, it's £14 a month plus VAT. That's if I buy it month to month. If I buy the whole year up front, then effectively you get 2 months free. You get about a 20% discount off that. And most of our customers just buy the annual plan. But as I say, you do have an option to do it month to month. And you can always upgrade to plan if you start on this one and then you find you've got more properties, or you suddenly acquire some people acquire other people's portfolios or start managing other people's, then you can simply upgrade to this plan as well. Okay. Are there any other questions? Oh yeah, and one other thing I'd say is that however you start, once you start click on this button to start for free. So whatever plan you want, start off here on start for free. And then once you're in, scroll down here, you can click on add new units, or you can go to my subscription. And then once you do that, you'll arrive at a page that looks like this, but it's within our system. This one's already been activated, so I can't show you on here. And then just pick the plan you want and follow the prompts, and away you go. I just posted a couple of questions in Q&A, Richard. Okay. In the Q&A, where is the... Oh, yeah, right. Thank you. I haven't... Right. Thank you, everyone. I hadn't, I've only started using Zoom for webinars about 2 months ago. I was using a different package before then, and Zoom is so much better. But I didn't, it's not a feature I've used before, Q&A. So thanks for that, Colin. So John thought it was 1 o'clock as well. Well, I do apologize, John and Colin. Not sure what the disconnect there was, but I will check it. Can we allocate cost and rental income to an individual HMO room? Yes, you can. Yes, you can as well. I'll show you that in a moment. Does Alphaletz auto-generate recurring invoices each month like Xero does? And does it report on outstanding invoices paid? Okay, let me cover your first questions first, Colin. Can we cost next? Right. Okay, let's find an HMO. I've got one set up here as a Birmingham HMO. And in the Birmingham HMO here, I've got six rooms, okay, and each one has a different tenancy on it. But I also have the main building. So if I wanted to add an expense, like I put a new roof on, so it's not specific to one room, it's just for the whole building, I can add an expense in here. Okay, and here I've got all my expenses. If I wanted to add an expense to bedroom 1, I can click on bedroom 1. And I can go in here and I can add an expense specifically for bedroom 1. Okay, and I can track all my income and expenses. I can even store documents specifically to bedroom 1 as well. So this might be, you've put a new fire door on it, or you've put a fridge in or something like that into room 1. So the answer is yes, you can do that. And then from here, if you go into the expenses on the property, you can filter, I believe. Yeah, you can filter on here. So you can look at all my expenses for room one, room two, and so on. Okay, that was the first part of your question. And yes, when you run a report, you can do that as well, Colin. Yes. Does Alphalet's auto-generate recurring invoices each month like Zero does? It doesn't really do invoices as you can do statements. Does it report on outstanding invoices? Not really, Colin. That's something we haven't really been asked for that because, as you say, that is more. I'm just trying to think how you would create what you'd do an invoice for. Because you'd be invoicing, does it report on outstanding invoices? Would this be an invoice for a supplier or because you wouldn't invoice a tenant, obviously, unless you were, but you can send a statement to a tenant. Um, so let me just park that for a second. Does Alpha Let's prepare finances and accounts, etc., ready for accountant? Yeah, it does, Colin. I was just showing you, I just showed that a second ago, actually. Let me just quickly show that as well. I've got it open somewhere, I think, still. Oops. Where is it? Where did I put that? Well, I'll tell you what, I'll just generate another one. So you go into transactions, smart reporting down here. Let's say I wanted to look at last financial year, export it, breakdown by property. There's my report. And there you go. So we've got the last financial year and it's all broken down and itemized property by property. So we've got City Walk, we've got Kew Road. You can see all the income, all the expenses, and then it's all summarized at the bottom of the page here. And I actually worked with my accountant and asked her, what is the format you would like to make your job easier and hopefully save me some money. So it's like we don't have, it takes you less hours to prepare my accounts. And this was the actual format that she really likes. For a tenant every month, I currently do that with Zero. How do you manage the tenant payment aspect? The tenant, well, typically certainly the way I work it with my tenants is I set up a tenancy agreement and then I get the tenant to pay the rent in every month by direct debit normally or a standing order into my bank account. And then those payments come in to my account. It looks like this. Here are rents coming in. Here are my expenses. And then I categorize that. If I wanted to show a statement, there's a couple of ways I can do that. Let's go into properties, City Walk, rent scheduler. There's a little button here that says create tenant statement. And let's say I wanted to do that for last month. I can export that. And there's the statement. And if you have a logo, maybe you have a company logo, you could put it in the system and it'll pull it into the statement. You can see here it's got the tenant name, the rent, and you can see it was here's the amount that was due and here's when it was paid, and there's your statement ready to send to the tenant. Is that what you mean? Do you manage the tenant payment aspect with Alphalet's then? I think hopefully that answers your question, Colin. Yeah. That's how I would do it anyway. That's how I do it for my properties. So I get the tenant to pay me a standing order, the rents come in, I can create a statement at any point, and I can create the accounts for my accountant through the smart reporting. So what you might find, what a lot of our customers find is that they were using Zero. In fact, there's a good case study that I mentioned earlier from a lady called Paula, which you'll find on our YouTube channel. Where is it? Here. and she was using Zero, and but she looked at Zero, she found it just wasn't really suitable for being a landlord. It's a good general purpose accounting system. I use it for our accounts for Alphaletz actually. And I did try to use QuickBooks for my property business, but I just couldn't. It was asking me to set up all these different classes and all this sort of stuff, which didn't really work very well for my property business. So we found that a lot of people are able to give up their monthly subscription for Zero and QuickBooks and just have one system now, which is what Alphalet's does. So we've really tried to take the best of all these different systems and make it really simple for everybody. There are outstanding payments. Yeah, that's yeah, Colin, we covered that actually. I'll send you that in a recording. But the outstanding arrears we show right here on the dashboard. Okay, so on the dashboard, you can see what rents are due. So I can see here all the rents due for April because I haven't reconciled them yet. And then if there's any outstanding rents, they will show here on the arrears page down the bottom. And that's what the dashboard gives you total visibility of your portfolio. And then if I want more detail, I showed this a little bit earlier, but I'll show you again. It would just at the beginning of the webinar. So if I click on if I wanted the details of John Smith, I can see that he moved into this HMO into room 3. He's paid that. He renewed his tenancy, but he owes £600 here. And if I click on the £600, I can see all the rents that have been paid, all the schedule of rents, and then I can see that rent payment there is overdue from the 1st of April. Cheers, Colin. No problem. Okay. Are there any other questions? I'm conscious we've gone well over the hour now, and it's glad to see that everyone I think is still on the call. So thank you for your time and your attention today. Really appreciate that. Obviously, we'd love to see you on the platform. If you sign up today on our system, then we have tomorrow I do a monthly completely free training session for our paid customers, and that tomorrow is a little bit more interactive. So I'll I'll pick a theme. Like today, I just gave you a general overview of the product. Tomorrow, I'll be going sort of a deep dive. So, I'll show you how to set up a bank rule, for example. I'll show people how to run reports, how to use the document management system, the tenant. I know we had a lot of questions today on historical tenancies. That would be a good thing that I could cover tomorrow in the training. And that lasts about an hour, and it's really interactive. People can ask questions, and I give them all the sort of tips and tricks of the system, because what we want is obviously we want you on our system, but we want you to stay on our system. We want you to get the most out of it, and get real value out of Alphalet's, and show you how it can save you so much time and money. So that all that is part of the service. That's completely free, and that's for our paid customers. How to add a second tenant, existing tenancy. Yeah, no problem. It's an easy one. If you go back into your properties, City Walk. So I set this tenancy up here with Robert Merrill. And to add a second tenancy, all you do is you click on link tenant. This will open up all the tenants in the system. Let's say I want to add Kevin Walters. I just click link tenant, close it down here. And now I've got Kevin Walters and Richard Merrill as two tenants in that property. That's in the same property. If I had an HMO, I could add each tenant to each room individually, but this would be, for example, two people sharing. And we always have a primary tenant and a non-primary. And that's normally because there's normally one person that sort of organizes everything, as you probably know. If also if I go into tenant history, this is just a little tip and trick here. If you click on view link tenants, I can see that both these, because I only set this up today, it's showing today. But let's say you've got like a student's house and you've got constantly, you know, six tenants and, you know, two change the next year and then three more move in and one moves out. Then as you do that, if you click on the view linked tenants, you can see exactly who moved in what date and who moved out. Really useful, especially if you're trying to chase bills or anything like that. You've got all that tenant history there. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay. Okay. The question here is, can we add, are we extending the session? I'll take one or two more questions because we've still got a lot of people on the call. So by all means, if you want to throw something in the Q&A, then please do so. Um, and once again, sorry, Colin and John, about the timing. I'm not sure what happened there. I can only think maybe it was because the webinar was set up. Um, I set it up on a recurring monthly basis. So maybe it just didn't sync up properly for some reason. But anyway, um, I'll send out the recording anyway. Um, Okie doke. Anything else from anybody? I think, uh, y- yeah. Yeah, possible to enter We don't actually enter the estate agents as a percentage. And the reason for that, so here's the question. The question is, um, for those of you out there that use an estate agent to collect the rent, and I do it for some of mine as well, they typically charge me anywhere between, I don't know, 8 and 12%, depending on whether it's fully managed or rent collection only and so on. Now, some of the letting agents I use are quite small and they don't charge VAT, for example. Others do charge VAT. So there's all sorts of different ways that people charge. So we decided to make it simple that if an agent does take the rent or collect and takes a commission from the rent, then what you would do is you click on this button here. Does an agent collect the rent? Yes. And then the question I've got here is, could we just put in a percentage like 5% or 10%? And as I say, we did think about that, but we decided we'd put in the actual amount just to avoid any confusion. So let's say it's £1,000 rent and they take 10% plus VAT. That would be 10% would be £100. 20% on that would be 120. So you'd put in £120, put in the name of the agent that is collecting the rent so that when you run a report, it shows correctly on the report. And then you can set it up. Well, we actually have lots of different categories here. You can set it up as a professional fee, for example, or or other allowable property expense. Or if you want, you can go onto the left-hand menu and there's a edit category button here, and you can set up your own category if you want. We give you 5 or 6 to get you started, which sort of mirror the HMRC ones. But if you wanted to put in, there you go, letting agent fees. You can set up letting agent fees as a separate category. And then what would happen then is, I don't know if it'll do it on this one because let me just see. Yeah, yeah, it'll do it from here because these rents haven't yet been paid. But because the rents here have already been paid, we've already marked them off. But you can see here, I've put in the £120. So now every month, well, this isn't £1,000 because but just imagine it was. Let's say this is your gross rent. Here's the fee that the agent takes off, and then this is the net rent that's going to come into your bank. Okay, so that's how we would show a recurring agent fee. If you have a fee on top of that, like you've replaced a fridge or a freezer, then go to the expenses and add that in separately. But if it's a recurring fee that comes out every month, like the agent fee, you can add it in here. Hopefully that makes sense to everybody. Say 20 properties, so plus sub, but only showing three accounts from which need six account within the same bank. Hmm. Okay, 20 properties, so plus. Yeah, so for 20 properties, you definitely want the Pro Plus. Well, you no, actually you wouldn't definitely want it. You could have the Pro and then you could add 20, but the Pro Plus will works out at better value once you get to about 20. You can do the calculations because it's that would be £11 plus for each additional property, it would be £1.40 to add there, or you can just buy this one at £24 for 25. Um, yeah, but only showing three accounts from within the same bank. Need six accounts within the same bank. Okay. Okay, so if I understand you correctly, what you're saying is within your bank, it's only showing three accounts, but you're saying there should be six if I've understood that correctly. I'd have to have a look at that because they should be showing all six. Um, I can only think, if you've got different banks, as I mentioned before, like you've got maybe Barclays Business and Barclays Personal, and there's three in each, for example, then just check that you've linked both accounts. I'm not sure, it might be something to do with that. Otherwise, I'd need to take a look. Um, but it's probably something around that. Um, so if you need any help with that, please let me know. I'll be very happy to jump on a call. On the pricing, what is a unit, please? Is it a room, an HMO? Yes, Colin. So if it's basically think of it like a tenancy. So if you've got an HMO with six rooms and each room has its own tenancy, we would count that as six units. Okay. If it's one property like an HMO where you've got six students sharing all on the same tenancy, then we would count that as one because it's effectively one tenancy. We priced it like this because there are other examples where somebody might have a block of flats and each flat they would classify as a unit where it's not technically a unit, it's a flat. Um, and then we effectively give away the main building for free, so there's no charge for that. So for example, with your HMO, you've got your six rooms here, and then you've got the main building. There's no charge for the main, so effectively you're getting seven here, I suppose, because you can track everything separately for the main building, like your documents and notes and um, you know expenses, and then you can track it individually for the rooms as well. So hopefully that makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Email expense receipts into the system, or do they need to be uploaded in the conventional way? Yeah, Colin, you do need to upload them in the conventional way. I know what you mean about. I think I think what you mean is in Zero. There's a thing called Dext, Dext, that I use anyway, and I can email that to Dext, and then they put it into Zero for me. We don't have that. You would actually have to just upload it, but it's pretty straightforward. And when you do that, if you go into your expense, you can add, you can attach all your receipts to these. So, Southwest Trains here, if I wanted to attach a receipt, go into add document and then attach the receipt that way. And then you've got it here. Really good when you're using your document management. If I wanted to look at, like, I was looking the other day for fridge. Yeah, here we go. So I've got two fridges that were bought. Here's the warranty and here's a fridge. So I don't know if these are the real. Yeah, there we go. So there we go. So this is the fridge freezer I bought. I can see when I bought it, how much I paid for it. Um, it's just really simple to find stuff. Any other questions? We've gone way over the hour today. You've been a really good interactive audience today. So thank you for all of that. I'm not sure if every one of you is a brand new user. It sounds like there might be one or two that have already signed up. So for those of you that have signed up, just to mention again, we have free training tomorrow. I'm going to let me just I'm going to put the link in here. Let me just grab the link. Right, I will put the link in. Bear with me a second. How do I do this? Yes, for those of you that signed up to already a paying customer, you can join this training tomorrow. Um, Thanks, Shamir. How to record first payment to account for initial payment, then record quarterly. Right, let's cover that one tomorrow. Brilliant. All right, everyone. Thank you very much for joining. Hopefully, you can enjoy some sunshine today because it's a beautiful out day outside. Hopefully, you got a lot out of the session. Please sign up. Please become a customer. We have a really great community at Alphaletz and get lots of great feedback. We're constantly adding new features to the product as well. So anyone who's got good ideas, we will always listen. And if we can think of a way that will help you save time and money, then we'll add it in the product. And we normally bring out features every sort of 6 to 8 weeks. So, with your subscription, the product will constantly get better, as all part of what you've already paid as well. Okay, everybody, thank you so much. Have a great week and look forward to seeing you on the system soon. All right, take care. Bye now.